The purpose of our meeting today is to update you and bring you right up to date in terms of the story so far. So some of you, most of you may be familiar with our work already, but it might be helpful just to give a little bit of a refresh, a little bit of context into why we are in front of each other today and what the purpose of the Young Persons Guarantee is. Most of you will be aware that Andy Burnham, the Mayor, is relentlessly positive on the futures of young people. And he asked me to chair the Young Persons Guarantee in June as a direct impact of COVID-19. The purpose was really about protecting the futures of young people, their hopes, their aspirations, and their ability to be able to not only survive in an uncertain landscape, but actually to have a positive future ahead of them. So part of us being able to protect those futures was about actually listening and understanding to the needs of young people. So on the 25th of June, you'll see on this slide, we had the first of our consultations that would enable us to begin that listening exercise. Over 5,000 young people visited the webpage at that time. But since then, we've also been doing some face-to-face work, some detached work with our youth workers across the whole of Greater Manchester to get a sense of and to also keep engaged with young people who wouldn't necessarily engage through Facebook or digital mediums. This gives you a little bit of a snapshot in terms of some of the issues, what young people told us. One of the questions we asked was, which of these is the most important to you right now? Remember, this was back in June. It was a very different landscape then. Young people were not in school, in college or university. So potentially what was important to them then, it has shifted in terms of where we are now. So you can see 40% of young people who we asked at that time were telling us that jobs and training was the most important thing to them right now. In terms of what did they need support with at that time, 12% talked about staying healthy, 15% education, careers advice, 8% digital access. Overwhelmingly, 65% of young people talk to us about employment opportunities. The final question that we asked many questions, but in terms of what we've collated here, what has the coronavirus pandemic affected the most? And again, overwhelmingly, education and training was a key issue in terms of our young people. So that gave us a sense of what we really needed to focus on and what would drive this Young Persons Guarantee. And as a result of that, what we were able to do was to collate what young people have told us, not only from that consultation, but also beyond that. So here you can see these are the concerns that was coming through about the situation. Lots of young people told us how they were struggling with lockdown, bereavement, keeping motivated, sleep issues. The levels of anxiety were particularly high. The worries about returning to school or college, as I said, was very much highlighted at that time. Young people were telling us they wanted to socialise and get back socialising with their mates, with their buddies, with their teachers. They were concerned about safety measures and going back to school. Was it going to be safe? The messages were quite confusing. And if we move across into what they were telling us about their futures, well, there was uncertainty over everything. They were worried about not taking exams and the impact of those exams not taking place. How would it affect them? Would they be able to catch up? But longer term, would they be able to get the careers, the futures and the job security that they were seeking? So in terms of what we were able to gather, and in terms of the consultation and listening to young people, it was clear that 4 key themes had emerged. I know a lot of you will be familiar with them. They were about keeping connected, not only in terms of digital connectivity, but also transport. and alternative methods of moving around Greater Manchester. Staying well, focused on mental health support, physical health support. It was about access and availability for young people in terms of being able to get the best possible support that they needed at that time in terms of their mental and physical health. Making effective transitions really focused on narrowing the gap between being disadvantaged because of periods of missed education, exams not being taken, the results that they got, the predicted results that we all remember so clearly. But also it was about financial literacy and life skills and being able to access a curriculum that adapted to their needs. And the final theme that was emerging was around reducing economic inequalities. So narrowing the gap between what jobs were available, what apprenticeships will be available to young people. So what they were telling us was they needed more support to link in and partner with employers. And they wanted to be able to develop areas in terms of jobs, job security, and they wanted increased job security. So they were the four themes and some of the layers beneath those themes that were emerging as part of the consultation. So this next slide talks about how we build on the Young Person's Guarantee for Greater Manchester. We want to ensure that the guarantee supported as far-reaching a wider range of young people as possible. Our age gap or our age group is 11 to 30. Many, as you can imagine, have different needs or are facing different needs, different challenges and different circumstances, specifically because of the pandemic. So what we were able to do was begin to get the guarantee to talk to those individuals who we wanted it to meet the needs of. So here you can see we are talking to those individuals who are returning to school or were returning to college in September at that time. They will be looking for work or an apprenticeship. They may have recently become unemployed or at risk of redundancy. They were unsure about their career options. So you can see here a full extensive list of who and how the guarantee was going to talk to those individuals and meet some of those needs. But actually in developing the guarantee and for the guarantee to have an authentic voice, it was important for us to create a youth advisory group. It was an open application, 90 young people applied, so it was a very competitive application process, and we had to shortlist to 24. So we have at least 2 young people aged 11 to 30 who represent the whole of Greater Manchester, so 2 from each borough, except Manchester who has 4. So we've taken 2 from the youth combined authority lead, as well as 2 who applied through the process. And their role and responsibility, if you like, is to reflect the consultation, but also to contribute to the development and the delivery of the guarantee and how it comes through. And you'll hear from the members a little bit later. So if we could just, yeah, thank you, Jack. So here we are. Here's a look, if you like, at the Youth Advisory Group. These are the 4 who you'll be hearing from a little bit later. So on the website, there is also a link, which we've got here. So you can go and have a look, have a read of who else is on the advisory group. But we've got Olivia, Faith, Bobby and Arinola, who you will hear from later. And each of these individuals lead on one of those 4 thematic themes that we spoke about earlier. And these individuals, the team, are crucial for us to be able to really represent the young people who the guarantee is supposed to meet and speak to. This gives you a snapshot, this slide, of the structure. So the Young Person's Guarantee structure and what we look like. So you can see we've got the Youth Advisory Group, those 24 individuals who are really the voice of the guarantee. very closely supported by the Youth Combined Authority and the Youth Taskforce Project Board. We talk more detail about the Youth Taskforce as we move forward, but the Taskforce Project Board are key to the success of being able to deliver any recommendations back to the Mayor, because they are our operational team, if you like. I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like as we move forward, but you get a sense here of the reporting structure and what that structure looks like, with the 4 themes there and who our key partners and stakeholders are in terms of us being able to deliver on those recommendations. And if we can move to the next slide, Jack. Thank you. So where are we now then? I said what I wanted to do was share with you the story so far. So our delivery phases have taken on 3 individual phases. Phase 1 is what we are talking about and where we are in terms of our commitments. Phase 1 was about identifying and mapping what does our current commitment or our current landscape look like right now, so that we could avoid duplication. We wanted to be able to adapt, maximize, and make sure that whatever was in place already, we could respond to the needs of our young people right now. So as it says there, it's about maximizing the current offer, working with our existing partners, raising awareness and engagement so that we could respond immediately to some of those needs that we've seen already. Phase 2 is where we are right now. So the whole of September is about developing new initiatives or new programs, working with our partners to be able to identify how we actually drive up and deliver programs in the short to medium term so that we can have tangible commitments that talk to the needs straight away. Phase 3 is really very much about legacy. We know we can't do everything overnight. We know we are going to need potentially some infrastructure change, resource and investment. So the recommendations will be about identifying areas where further support is required, further investment is needed, so that we can progress activity as we move forward for young people across Greater Manchester. And the next slide, please, Jack. So in terms of maximising the current offer in Greater Manchester through tangible commitments, this is where Jack is now going to talk around what does that look like? What can organisations offer? And how do we bring the consultation from a plan on a page to actual real life proposed activity that will actually make a difference in the lives of our young people? Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, thanks, Diane. So I think you mentioned before that it's really important to recognise that organisations and partners and services across Greater Manchester have already been doing some fantastic work in support of young people to respond and to react to the coronavirus pandemic. And what was important in terms of our approach to the guarantee was to really assess and recognise what was already taking place within the city region and look at how the guarantee could both build upon and add value to that work that's already taking place. So through this phase 1 commitment process, what we're really keen to do now is to put forward those clear and tangible commitments that organisations are saying they want to do to support young people. Some are already doing this, some are making, you know, clear ambitions and pledges to support young people with a clear and comprehensive offer to support them to continue to progress and prosper. So we are launching what we're calling our Young Persons Guarantee commitment process. Essentially, what we are asking is for organisations to put forward what their commitment is and how that feeds into the objectives and thematic structure of the Young Persons Guarantee. So how can your offer to young people work to meet some of those priorities that Diane talked through at the beginning of this presentation, that young people have asked us within the Greater Manchester system to address and ultimately try to achieve. So, you know, it's things around keeping connected, where it might be the provision of laptops or digital devices, through to under the economic inequalities task force, you know, under that theme, where organisations may be able to commit tangible work opportunities, jobs, work experience. So we're really keen to hear from organisations and services who want to put forward a commitment, and you can do that via our commitment webpage, which has been published on the CA's website. We have a dedicated area for the Youth Task Force and the Young Persons Guarantee, and at this stage what we are asking organisations to do is make a commitment by sending an email to the task force inbox, and then our project team will work with you to kind of develop that and work it through to publication. So that process, I'll just explain kind of how that will work. So organisations will submit their information via the Young Persons Guarantee webpage. It will then work through to the project team, and we will work with you to basically finalise those details, and then work with our youth advisory group to assess and ultimately work through the approval of that commitment. Once that has been approved, that commitment will then be published via our Young Persons Guarantee web channels. And that's not just via things like social media, but we'll also look to publish on our digital platforms such as the GMAX website. But critically, it's something that both you can share, but also other organisations will be able to tap into as well. So what we're really keen to look at is how this process, this commitment process, can create momentum, can create broader awareness about the different types of opportunities and offers that are available to young people within the Greater Manchester ecosystem. Of course, what's really important with this is that we assess the impact of this work. So we're really keen that once a offer has been published, that we keep in touch and we have regular dialogue with organisations to find out whether it's being accessed, what young people think about the offer and how it's helping to support them. And what we will be doing is creating a sort of digital pack, which once an offer has been published, we will send to you, which will explain how we want you to use that offer, both in terms of raising awareness, but also doing things like capturing young people's views and opinions and recording those so that we can assess the impact, as I say. And ultimately, that impact measure is going to be a key part of the legacy arrangements of the Young Persons Guarantee. So Diane talked about that third phase of delivery being really critical, in that we want to push forward a clear narrative and a clear ask around the things that young people want, young people still need, and that ultimately we still require further investment, support or resource to make happen, either in the short term or to sustain and provide some longevity to the positive activities that are already taking place. Just as an example below, we've already had a couple of organisations submit commitments to us. So as you can see here, the Prince's Trust have put forward a commitment to support young people by investing £250,000 to drive forward parts of the Young Persons Guarantee. So the things that young people are saying are still needed, or the system still needs further investment, the Trust have come forward and committed some tangible funding to help make that happen. And UA92 have also committed a support of 92 grants of £5,000 to help young people who have recently been affected or been made redundant because of the pandemic, to enter into higher education courses with their university. So there are a couple of examples of the types of commitments that can be submitted by organisations and could be worked through the guarantee. And as we say, what we will look to do is obviously promote those through our channels, but also work with other organisations to make sure that they're getting out there and being reached where young people need to see them.
Thanks, Jack. That's great. I think at this stage we're going to bring our young people in before we go into the thematic. Well, it's perfect timing because we're going to go into the thematic task force groups. So I'm going to introduce the guys who are leading on this one. So over to you. So who's on Keeping Connected? Is that Bobby?
Yep. Hi, thanks, Diane. So, hello, and thank you everyone for coming. I'd like to apologize for not having a camera on at the minute. I've ordered one, but it's not come yet. So just imagine that I'm dressed really smart and fancy. So my name is Bobby Kent, and I'm from Ashton-under-Lyne in Tameside. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Keeping Connected branch at the Youth Task Force. What we are passionate about, as we potentially see a second wave of this pandemic incoming, is inclusion. Inclusion can mean a lot of different things, but let me be more specific and break down what we've decided we as young people need to be included in the world that we find ourselves in today. Young people need to be included digitally. Some disadvantaged groups of young people have low quality or no internet access available, and we believe that this needs fixing. In Greater Manchester specifically, over 200 schools have had positive COVID-19 cases, throwing classes into jeopardy and pushing them online. Education for young people is vital for our futures, and those from already disadvantaged backgrounds are finding themselves put in an even worse position when they can't even study for their futures. We need to address this in ways I'll share in just a moment. We also care about social inclusion. Young people of any age, from 11 right up to 25 and beyond, are in a vital part of life that focuses on building social connections. As such, we want to increase the availability of free and discounted public transport beyond the current exceptional groups to better enable us to safely see our friends and family where possible and where safe. Beyond that, we love the idea of alternative safe travel option schemes to be promoted to young people, for example, cycling schemes. So here is how that social inclusion intersects with the digital inclusion. We already face household mingling restrictions here in Tameside, and that leaves us with online being our only way really to communicate. With a second lockdown that could go national. So here's what we would like to see. We need to promote the digital support offers available to young people more widely, and in addition to that, increase the availability of discounted or free internet connected devices. The digital teaching resources need to be catered to us for maximum quality of education, which includes accessible formats for disabled students like myself, prepared when needed, and translated materials available for young learners who are not yet fluent in English. If any or hopefully all of this is done, our third and final way to connect is to let it be known to young people that these options are out there. We will use all appropriate campaigning methods and communication channels provided to us by the Greater Manchester Combined Authority to ensure every young person in this incredible, diverse region knows that the local government has got their back. I'll give you a really quick example of the work we've already done on this. I myself am disabled, like I mentioned, with spinal muscular atrophy type 2. And so I've written a blog post for young disabled people in the region explaining how we can get around safely throughout this pandemic. I went over the travel schemes that are already available to us, and now this information is out there, and hopefully those young disabled people in our region will be able to go out with confidence. I'll wrap up by saying, young people need to be at the forefront of the fight against the pandemic. We really have a responsibility to keep those more vulnerable and older safe. But as such, there's a responsibility to keep us and our futures protected as well. Thank you everyone for listening, and I hope you will join us in making Greater Manchester continue to be the best place in the UK to be a young person, even throughout the coronavirus. I'm happy to take any questions if there is any, but if not, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bobby. I'd like to introduce Arinola, who's leading on the effective transitions. Are you there, Arinola? Can you hear us? Okay, let's go on to Faith, who's focused on reducing economic inequalities.
Thank you, Diane.
Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Hello, my name is Faith. I am the co-chair of one of the co-chairs of the Removing Economic Inequalities Task Force as part of the Youth Advisory Panel. So during my time within the task force, I've definitely been exposed to the realities facing young people in search of employment and apprenticeship opportunities. With my age, I'm 14, so I'm currently in year 10. I was really uneducated, I suppose, to how and what services were available for us. Even though I myself probably won't be affected by the things that we're probably going to put into place, or what we hope to put into place, it definitely sets the standard for the future. So if certain things are proposed today, who knows what they'll be in a year or two. So for young people, we've been asked to prioritise 4 main points. To offer support to employers to help encourage them to create more jobs and apprenticeship opportunities for young people, to ensure the access given to new employment opportunities or employability schemes is inclusive and equitable, especially for those who face more needs and barriers. For example, care leavers, LDD young people, autistic young people, and young carers. We'd also like to increase the level of support given to young people to find suitable job or apprenticeships, and to develop mechanisms that increase job security. Now, unfortunately, putting all these wonderful support systems into place is only one way of tackling the issue as a whole. The cause of these inequalities stems from lifelong issues, such as lack of support in educational institutes and at home, causing low literacy rates, lack of knowledge about interviews, job vacancies, and employment opportunities. As a community, we must be mindful of all these barriers facing young people in order to support them properly. Now, the proposed task force activities do mainly focus on working with businesses and employment institutes. We would like to add on to these things. For example, improving the level of information provided to young people about vacancies and the current employment offer in Greater Manchester via existing online platforms and services. Working with public sector partners to build employment and apprenticeship opportunities for vulnerable and marginalised group of young people, to design a set of youth-friendly employment standards that can support all of Greater Manchester youth employment campaigns and initiatives and can be embedded into the Youth Employment Charter. All these things rely on businesses as a whole to work with us, with the Youth Advisory Panel. We would also like to design our own sorts of things. For example, contributing to the design and development of the Kickstart programme in Greater Manchester, which would ensure the opportunities and support can be offered to a wide range of young people, and to design and deliver a campaign that encourages businesses to create and develop more opportunities for young people. And this as a whole would make support more available for young people facing these financial barriers. Now, as we've seen in the past slides, the majority of young people who took the surveys found that reducing economic inequalities was of the utmost importance. For example, it was said as people finding it 40% importance at the time, 65% who wanted more support for them, and 26% of them found it was one of the most effective things within them. Now, I think it's incredibly important that we as a community support these young people, because even though I personally probably won't be affected by them, I know that especially with the people that I have talked to within my own task force and the people that I've discussed within meetings as a whole, is definitely concerned about the current situation, especially how it's incredibly uncertain of what the future is going to look like. So I thank you all for listening to me ramble on for a while, and I definitely hope that you can contribute as a whole to our young people.
Thank you, Faye. I'm now going to hand over to Olivia, who's heading up the Staying Well theme. Are you there, Olivia? Can you hear us?
Hi everyone. So my name's Olivia and I'm a recent graduate, so I'm delighted to be part of the Youth Advisory Group in forming a guarantor that really will provide for 11 to 30-year-olds and give them a kind of a sense that they're being acknowledged in all this madness of COVID that it is, and that their problems that have been highlighted are being supported, and we're trying to actively engage with them and provide solutions. So along with 6 other members of the Youth Advisory Group, we're tasked with supporting the Staying Well theme, which means that we will ensure that any priorities that we've heard and created these priorities based off what the consultations have said, and we have got the task of making sure that all these priorities are met, so that when we hand over this guarantor, that it does what we want it to do, it delivers for young people. So we have recently met with health services and organisations that currently exist to try and gauge what already exists and what works and what doesn't work and how that can be developed, because we do recognise Greater Manchester has such a strong organisations already. So we want to build upon that within the Staying Well to be able to meet the main priorities that Diane has briefly just mentioned, but I'll just highlight them again for you. So it's just ensuring that school and educational pupils, so whether they are in college, university, feel safe in that environment and feel secure in what they're doing, which is particularly important at the moment with so many schools bubbles being closed. So we need to provide comfort for them in their mental health and well-being, that they're not anxious and scared and worried about any time they're sent home from school or even when they are in school. So increasing the accessibility to the mental health services for those that aren't in education as well, though. So that has been a key message throughout the consultations that we've had, is that there's also a lack of information of what is actually accessible. So we need to make sure that is possible now and offer opportunities to engage in social action. So we've been in a lockdown for so long, but something that's so important for young people is social action and social interaction, to feel like they're part of the community. So most recently we had a meeting and just spoke to a variety of mental health services and organisations, which proved to be hugely successful, as they recognise that our priorities are similar and they align to their goals as an organisation as well. But they also highlighted how maybe we could get involved with different voluntary small organisations. They might offer more solutions that can be on a smaller, more local scale basis, so that Greater Manchester can be all together strong, but in local little bits can build together and everyone can have a good Staying Well atmosphere. So we also recognise as well that how we communicate to young people is crucial. So possibly as businesses and organisations, you have provide input in how we communicate to young people and how that might be best. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. I am going to try again with Arinola. Hopefully she can hear me. So Arinola is leading on the effective transitions theme. No? Okay. So as you can see with the slides that have gone up whilst our co-chairs were talking, you got a sense of what that activity looks like. And on making effective transitions, you can see the task force here is very focused on ensuring that young people are able to make those transitions in the best possible way. And the proposed activities that we've been looking at and what we're working towards is about encouraging and influential individuals and role models, for example, alumni, to become ambassadors of the Young Person's Guarantee. That is key for us. If we want young people to be authentically leading this, that's the focus that we want them to be involved in. And you can see the other areas there that we are focusing on, but also just to highlight, this is proposed activity. We want you as part of our team to be able to influence this, to shape this with us along with our co-chairs. What I'd like to do now, Jack, because we've had the slides on whilst our co-chairs were speaking, is potentially look at the impact and then talk around what do we mean when we talk about the task force. So if we could maybe go to that slide in terms of what the impact will be. So a lot of the conversations that we're having as part of the Young Advisory Group is how will we know we've been successful? How will we know if we've done what we set out to do? So you can see here, by November, we are expecting our young people to have contributed to the following outcomes. I won't go through all of them because we are going to circulate the slides following this discussion, and we do want to have some time for you to ask questions as well. But in keeping connected, we want fewer young people to feel digitally excluded. And, you know, you might be saying, well, isn't that obvious? Of course it's obvious, but when you drill down to what that actually means, it's actually quite convoluted, and there's a lot of work that needs to go on behind that. We're beginning to understand that digital exclusion means one thing, but there's also marginalized digital exclusion. So that might mean you might have a laptop or a digital device, but you might not have brilliant Wi-Fi, so you're not able to get on your device in the first place. So in terms of staying well, we'll know if we've been successful if there are more opportunities made available for young people to positively contribute to society or their local community. So something there around social action. In making effective transitions, you get a sense here what success looks like. More young people feel better prepared for work and adult life. And finally, narrowing those economic inequalities, it's about employers offering workspace experiences that are meaningful, that young people have a good job and have good purpose, but also are making money as well so that they can live. So if we go on to the next slide then, Jack. Investment asks and recommendations. So this is that long-term legacy that we alluded to early on. We know that within the spending review, we want to be part of that ask in terms of how we include the guarantee in that. Jack mentioned already, we've got some short to medium term investment from partners who have already committed to us. So our plan is to be able to bring resource back into the city region so that we can deliver on some of the recommendations that we hope to make back to the mayor. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. This is about strengthening the ask, recognising what's out there already, and being able to drive in more revenue for that longer term need that we know our young people are certainly going to require as we move forward. So, communications and engagement strategy. I know, Jack, you were going to pick up here. Would you like to just maybe talk through what our thoughts are, what we've been discussing as a team in terms of comms and engagement?
Yeah, I think our colleague Kelly may be on the call, so I'll ask her to come in. But just to pick up on just a point you made on the last slide, Diane, I think just to reiterate that, or the last couple of slides, it's really important that when we're talking about kind of our impact and success measures, that at the moment we're only able to look in quite a short-term lens. But what we really want to look at, is creating some long-term impact through this. But obviously, part of that will be securing the legacy for this project beyond the end of November. So a lot of this at the moment is quite short-term in terms of creating more kind of tangible outputs that we know will help young people to access new things and increase awareness. But ultimately, the impact measures will probably be long-term, and what we want to do is try to secure those commitments from partners, and also our young people with a long-term strategy that has a longevity well beyond November, to try and make sure that we're having the absolute impact that we really want. Kelly, are you on the call?
Yes, I've just turned my video on. I've been hiding and listening in the background. So well done to everybody so far for the update. It's been absolutely brilliant. Let me just get my notes which are in front of me. Yeah, so since Diane was appointed in June, our team has been supporting the task force and project team on everything relating to kind of the work that's been ongoing with regards to consultation. So that's more been so from an engagement point of view. Things have been picking up pace quite a lot since then with regards to comms generally. One of the main things for us at the moment is working around the commitments, which Jack talked about earlier on. So to support businesses with that, we're just in the process of pulling together a pack which contains lots of useful guidance and handy tips to help those businesses really kind of share the messages along with ourselves, just to gain momentum, encourage more businesses to get involved, excuse me, and in the long term help more young people. As Olivia and a couple of others referred to earlier on, sorry, I've got reminders dinging and binging there, let me turn those off. Olivia said about ensuring that we communicate with young people in the right way. So I'm going to be setting up a meeting in the next couple of weeks just to link in with some of those members of the youth advisory group, just to see about helping to shape our messages, just to make sure we get that right tone, make sure that we reach the right people in the right way. So I think that's really important. That's a key thing throughout all this, is working with the young people for the young people. There's loads of stuff on our website, social channels, if you wanted to catch up on anything. Also, we have recently launched our newsletter, which contains like roundup of Diane's blogs. It's soon going to include Youth Advisory Group members' blogs. I can pop the link to that, the sign up link, in the chat once we're done on here. But I think that's it in a nutshell. You'll see from the slide and from the amount of work that's been discussed how involved our team will be in this kind of work. So yeah, just ongoing stuff, lots of exciting stuff happening. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kelly. An excellent roundup there. I'm very mindful that you have all been sitting and spoken to for a long time, and you've been patiently listening to everything that we've wanted to share and update with you in terms of our story so far. So it's over to you now, really. We have got 15 minutes left, and I did sort of give you a heads up that we might run a little bit over, and we still might, but we are really keen to open the floor to all of you now who, as part of our delivery team, essentially our task force that will enable us to be successful in our delivery. We want to hear from you. How are we doing? What areas of clarity do you need, or just any questions? I can see Emily's got her hand up. Thanks, Emily. Over to you.
Hi, sorry. I'm actually called Elaine. That's just it's just my email handle. So I'm Elaine and I'm from GMP. So what I would like to ask is, how do we start our own young persons youth advisory group? Because there's a lot of things around the criminal justice system, school-based officers, all sorts of things that we would love young people to get involved in and support some of our engagement with communities, because I think the youth voice is been missing for a long time, and that's where we should be looking to move forward with what we want to do. So how would you help us and support us with the creation of a youth advisory board, and then we can tie into what we're doing here? I can't hear anything.
You keep on going on mute, then speaking.
Right, I think I've got it now. So you're asking, how would you set up a youth advisory group within GMP?
Yes, so that we can better work with this programme of work for COVID and beyond.
Yeah, I think that is potentially best answered by a young person. I'm going to put you on the spot, guys, because if it is going to be an authentic voice, how do we reach you? How do we help Elaine get that sense of youth voice within, her organisation, within GMP? Who wants to go with that? Great, thank you, Faye.
Yeah, I think that's definitely excellent, Elaine, because it definitely, in my own personal experience, it has just been a great opportunity to learn how these things work. So whether it be staying well, things in employment, within education, it's been a very enlightening process. And I think for all institutes, really, it needs to be a more normal thing, basically, because I got into this through my mum, who definitely encouraged me to do this. And I think, reaching out to schools, to colleges, putting things on websites, definitely social media, because that's where most people look. But trying to make this a more, do things broad. Don't stick to one thing. Try and cover all your bases, because obviously some people might see things on social media. Some people might learn things from their parents, from things that they've maybe read in the news. So I think, just try and cover all your bases. That's what I'm trying to say.
Thanks, Faith. I can see Sharon had her hand up. I can't see everyone. So Jack, if you can see others, please shout out. So let's go with Sharon.
Fabulous. Thanks, Diane. And thanks, everyone, for your presentations. They've been amazing today. I'm going to try to be really quick, so I'm conscious of time, Diane. Just an offer of support, really. So I chair the GM Careers and Participation Group. So that is kind of local leads from each of the 10 local authorities. And I think there's a lot we can do to work with you on some of that mapping of what's available and what local gaps are. And probably a good connection route, I think, for the members of the Youth Advisory Panel, maybe to connect with the local leads in their local areas and look at, how can we connect GM work into the 10 authorities. And probably just a question as well around employer connection, because I think one of the things we're hearing from employers is we're trying to open our business back up. You're coming back out to us for college placements, you're coming back out to us for work experience, you're coming back out to us for jobs. And I think it would be great if we could explore a way that we bring all of that conversation together so that we're not overwhelming businesses, but we're helping them to create those opportunities and do it in the best way they can.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharon. And I'm going to, is it G7HEO policy recruitment? I don't have a name, but I have a number there.
Oh, wow. Is that how I show up on this? I'm sorry. It's Sean. Sorry, I work for Cabinet Office, the schools outreach team in Cabinet Office. Sorry, I'm involved with a policy recruitment campaign, so it must have taken over my profile. I do apologize. Just really a quick question for the Youth Advisory Panel. Since lockdown, we've been delivering work experience virtually and been, passing things on virtually to students to complete either themselves or in a group. And we used to do one-on-one mentoring in schools, and we've had to divert to doing this via email due to safeguarding. What are your thoughts on that? Does this would that appeal to a young person, given the circumstances that as an employer in the civil service, we've got to kind of react to the current situation, so we can't invite you into the office, which we'd obviously like to do. Kind of like a virtual work experience, which it seems to have gone down well. But can you say any barriers? The clear barrier I can see is the IT access, which has obviously already been mentioned. But what are your thoughts about businesses trying to kind of, rather than offer nothing, kind of trying to make do with IT access and virtual stuff?
Bobby or Olivia, do we have any opinion on that? Thanks, Bobby.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea. There will be issues with digital distribution. Some people might not have the devices, but it's still a lot better to have these plans in place. So then at least the young people will feel recognized by you offering that. I think that's a huge, great step. Promote that as much as you can with whatever you have the availability to do so, to let young people know. And yeah, I think that's really, really great. Thank you.
God, I appreciate that feedback. We thought it was best to do something rather than nothing, but we obviously do appreciate this may exclude certain students. But that's great feedback. Thank you very much for
that. Craig, would you like to ask your question now, please? Thank you.
Oh, hi, Diane. It's Craig Gaskell, Principal and CEO at University Academy 92. We're delighted to support the GM Young Persons Guarantee with our our commitment of 5k grants to help support young people impacted by COVID to get into higher education. So my question to the Youth Advisory Panel, and it's been a great update, my question is, how do we make sure that these commitments, which are really important, there are always certain people that always get to this stuff, but how do we make sure this gets to the real young people in GM, these kinds of commitments that can be most impacted by them?
I would say go through a school approach, go through a college approach, because then you're not excluding anyone. So possibly be putting it out on a networking that somebody tends to search for the kind of things that they can need for. If they wanted to go to get on higher education, they often go out searching for the funding or the scholarships that they need. But if you go raw into schools and try and inspire them from being in the college and give them actually a possibility, that kind of way, so directly giving them the source of information is right there in front of them, they can't ignore it, and it could possibly give them something inspiring to try and achieve and work hard, even if they're sent at home and doing their Zoom lesson.
Thank you. I know Elizabeth's had her hand up for a while, and so has Ayisatu. Sorry if I've said that incorrectly. Let's go with Elizabeth first, and then to you, Ayisatu.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Diane. And everyone really has absolutely tremendous presentations. Thank you to the young people who just was so professional. I was taking notes. Just a really brilliant, very concise, very, very clear. And I suppose my comment is that I feel that across the board, and what the point I'm going to make is for across the board, really, I still didn't get the feel of the sort of inclusion that I would be looking for, certainly in terms of race. I'm concerned about a couple of things in terms of my youth work. So one of it is the inclusion in terms of LGBT plus. I think there's some, really, I'm concerned about that and how we manage that, I think, as people in the profession. And when I look at something like the guarantee, I think that I don't feel that that's come through very strongly. In terms of race, I'm sitting on things like statistics we know in terms of exclusion of young Black men, still tremendously, still the highest people from traveller communities, the second highest. So really, those things impacting on people's mental health, their well-being. It's about all of the different strands that you talked about, really. So it's about a strand going all the way through that's a bit, a bit more meaty in terms of diversity and inclusion. And just the final thing was, had anybody thought about incentivizing the involvement of organizations to, so like it's more of a charter mark or something that they're getting. And I just think that, yeah, of course, you've got people like the Prince's Trust. I've worked for them, big organizations like that can quickly kind of come up with something. But smaller organizations doing a lot of really valuable youth work wouldn't be able, perhaps to get on board. And I think something like that would tip the balance. Thanks very much for allowing me to ask the question.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Not at all. That's really important. And just on those points, I'm mindful of time, and I do want to bring Ayisatu in. Excellent comment in terms of inclusion and diversity, but also the good charter guide. How do we ensure that we've got a high level of involvement that's got good practice, etc., etc. It's the conversations that we are having and that we will continue to have. The only caveat to that, but it's not actually exclusive. It doesn't stop us from looking at this. We've also had comments in terms of how do we keep our young people safe in terms of stop and search and other aspects in that respect as well. Our I suppose, ability is to be able to speak to the consultation. So what young people have told us as a direct result to COVID has been focused around those key things. We touched on it a little bit on the poll. So we are very much driven by that immediate response, but it doesn't mean that young people are still not affected by those fundamental issues that you talk about. And we are and will absolutely address them. If we are lucky, we may still end on time, so there's no pressure on you whatsoever, Ayusatu.
Right, hello, good, well, evening kind of everyone. My question is to the young people who have been involved. So I'm thinking that they're all called co-chairs. It was more to do with how is it that you've got to the point where you feel valued and you feel your opinion is valued? And the context for my question is that I'm working with the Caribbean and African Health Network over here, specifically on a project in Wigan. And part of the feedback we've received is about facilitating something for the young people within the sort of the Caribbean and African community here. And I'm hoping that we can sort of like get in with the upper hand by focusing on actions that will be effective for the young people by knowing what it is that you valued. So is it the fact that you were given responsibility and you had accountability for the decisions you made? Or was it the fact that you were just able to give out your ideas and people ran with it? I'll just like to know just a couple of things from, you know, however many of you we can squeeze in before we get bounced off. What is it that actually helped you feel confident and valued, that you weren't wasting your time and you were truly being listened to create the awesome work that you guys have put together? Thanks.
Faith, I can see you've got your hand up. Would you like to respond to that? Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think, especially because my dad's a first generation immigrant, he's from Kenya, I'm mixed race. I've definitely seen, especially in school, how people with that sort of background are treated. It's horrible, the things that you see, things that people think that they can say and there's no repercussions for it. So I think getting into something like this youth panel is, even on the first meeting, you're immediately given the chance to express your opinion on things. Because of my age, especially, because I'm one of the younger members of the groups, and I think it's 20 of members of the group, I think over the age of 16 and upwards. So that was incredibly intimidating because obviously you've got all these wonderful, experienced people who know what they want for the community and know when and where they want it. I think it's just important to make sure that people of all ages, so this 11 to 30 category, people of all races and religions, know that there is a place that you can state your opinion. So if you want to improve on something, this is where you can do it. And I think that was one of the best things about being in the panel, is this, you just had this unlimited amount, even on things that, like for me, I did not know a lot about removing economic inequalities. I was going in there blind, and the amount of support and chances of me, to ask questions and learn were just abundant. So I think, yeah, it was really amazing.
Thank you, Faith. Brilliant. Olivia and then Bobby. Can you hear me, Olivia?
Hi, yeah, just unmuting. Yeah, so real quick, I'd just say, like Faith said, it was the options to ask the questions and to really engage and ask query, like, why do you think that was the right thing? And then it'd be taken on board as well. So in the following meeting, you'd come back to us and be like, so we've done this, or we've spoke to these and we don't think it's actually doable. And it's feeling the input of every different person within the group to fit, like, say, so you've not really said that much today, but do you have any input, or are you happy with what we've said? It was the kind of engagement of everyone.
Thanks, Olivia. And then to you, Bobby.
Hi, so thank you for the question. I think that what's been really special for me in this youth group is just how much our opinions are valued. We can do kind of what we want when we have an idea. Like, I had the idea for the blog post, so I was in an environment where I was encouraged to share that, to say what my idea was. The idea was accepted and really quickly put through. I got an email response the next day saying, that's great, let's have a draft whenever you're ready, we'll help you work with it. So you really feel, I've really felt supported by Diane and everyone else, that our voices are really being valued. So I think that's really important when talking to young people. Let them know that you want to hear what they have to say. There's no wrong answers, there's no wrong ideas. It's an open space for any ideas, and that's been really beneficial, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have run over. Unfortunately, I can't take any other questions now because I know a lot of people do have to leave. But if you want to put your questions in the group chat, we will get back to you. So to summarise very briefly, what's going to happen now is we have 4 meetings in terms of those themes that we have identified. You are welcome to join those key meetings where you feel you can add value, you can bring your experience, your knowledge, your passion to want to make a change, but also you are our key delivery partners if this young person's guarantee is going to be a success. We will circulate the dates of those meetings, we'll circulate the slides from today, but again, reiterating our thanks to all of you who joined us on this chat. I think it was said in the chat, the numbers of people who have been involved today demonstrate the level of commitment across Greater Manchester in terms of us wanting to make this a success. Please go onto the website, look out for those dates, we'll circulate the slides. Thank you to all of you, and particularly to our young people who spoke so brilliantly today and really summed up perfectly what Andy Burnham was trying to do in terms of protect theirs and futures across Greater Manchester. And you can see there, you're getting a virtual round of applause from everybody who's still managed to stay on. Thank you, everybody. And apologies again, I couldn't take all your questions, but please share them in the group and we'll try and get back to you. Thank you. Have a great evening.